Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of the Marketplace Report with Handmade Seller Magazine. I'm Amber Christian, your host, and I am pleased to welcome Sally from the virtual market. Sally, welcome to the show, and can you tell us a little bit about the virtual market?
Yeah. Amber, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and to meet you and create one more relationship for people who care about the same things that I do. So thanks so much for having me. The virtual market is a huge passion of mine. I started this in December of 2020, and we are working towards bridging the gap between helping makers sell online, but still finding community because that is a very difficult thing when you're often making something from home and trying to get it out there, and it's really hard. And so we're trying to help people sell online, but with community.
hmm Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit. You decided to start this during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, Brave move. Tell me about that decision.
Yeah, so it wasn't intended to be this. What it is today looks a lot different than how it looked in November of 2020, for sure. So I guess kind of what happened was I got an email from my local community association that said, unfortunately, because of COVID restrictions, they were going to have to cancel their community Christmas market. And that
Ah,
broke my heart. And I just thought, I have a background in small business. I totally understand the work and, the material that goes into getting ready to complete one of these markets. And so my heart was just broken. And not only knowing what it takes to be able to participate in them, but like financially what it means to real people and like real families. We're not talking about like, and some people maybe we are a Disney trip, but for other
mm,
families we're talking about like groceries and
right.
bills and and at Christmas are we not worried about what this means for families who live where we live. And so that just kind of hurt me. And so I thought, you know what, they're with technology and we've figured out a way to sign documents online and do all this stuff. There has to be something we can do to be able to bring people together online in a better way. And so I ran a few online communities anyway, just for a local, like a block watch community and stuff like that. And so I thought, you know what, I already have a few people that live right here. And so I'm going to reach out to the community association and get their thoughts and see if I create a little Facebook group and maybe we can get a few of their sellers to post some pictures of stuff that they have that they were hoping to sell that maybe the people that are in my community would be interested in. So that's what I did, and they were super excited about it. And 6 weeks later, I pretty much blacked out, and we had 900 vendors, and we had 18,000 shoppers making hundreds of purchases every day. It was incredible. It was one of the best things that has ever happened and one of the best things I've ever been able to be a part of. And I'm so proud of how we in the city of Calgary came together as a community during that time.
So this was all started with a Facebook group,
Yeah,
basically?
yeah,
That's wild. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I know. It's crazy. So we're 3.5, almost 4 years later, and we've supported just over 1,500 vendors, and we have 26,400 shoppers that see our products regularly. So it's
Mhm.
pretty incredible, and I'm really, really proud of what we've been able to accomplish here.
Is it all still run in a Facebook group?
No.
Oh,
So,
okay, so let's talk about okay, it starts there 'cause I was trying not to have heart palpitations. I was like, "How do you administer that?"
Yes, we
One time,
definitely
sure.
still yes, we definitely still have our Facebook group,
Right.
and there are still lots of sales that happen in the Facebook group,
Mhm,
but very quickly, I was able to see, especially because of, the history that I have with running communities online. I
mhm,
understand how the algorithm works. It's meant to be social. It's not meant for selling. And
mhm.
so I knew that the momentum that we had wouldn't last.
Right.
So, what are we able to do? And so it was really hard because I originally thought, well, it's not going to last. Let's just, Christmas is over. Like, I'm wiping my hands of this. Let's, see you later. Happy I could help everybody. But that was clearly not an option. Vendors were like,
Mhm,
absolutely not. This has been incredible for my family. We can't shut this down. So, what are we going to do? What does an alternative look like? And so I said to everyone, okay, then we're going to have to take it outside of the group because this isn't long lasting. This isn't
mhm,
sustainable. And so, what does that look like? I don't know, but I'm going to need some time to think about it. And I needed to create a community where vendors could talk to me and where I could have real and open conversations with them and really understand what it was that they were getting from the virtual market that they weren't getting from other platforms that were out there.
mhm,
Because I didn't set this up to start a business. I set this up to support businesses. So I don't
mhm,
want to keep this going to take away from another small business that's out there doing something awesome. So,
mhm,
what is it that you need that is not available to you? And once I felt like I had a really good understanding of that, I said, okay. And I stepped back a little bit further and I really researched, what does it take to build that? And
mm,
can
mhm,
I find an option out there that already exists? I need to, do my own research and what does it cost to build something like this and how much time does it take? And so that whole process took about a year. And so I spent a year just operating through Facebook. I adminned the thing myself, and it was very intense. I charged vendors a really small fee, so they
mhm,
paid, I think it was like $100.
mhm,
And so it just paid for like our CRM and like building email lists and that kind of thing. And then leftover money, I would actually just go to the grocery store and buy groceries and bring them to our community fridge, and was like, this is
mhm,
something we're able to do as a community and this is cool. So I did that for a year and figured out, what needed to be done and how much money it was going to cost. And I kind of went back to them and said, here's my proposal. This is what I think, this is what I'm hearing you say you want. This is what I can build for you, and this is how much it's going to cost. So, are you in or are you out? What do you think? And we had some people that were out, and we had a lot more people that were in.
mhm,
So, we continued to move forward, and I built a platform based on what they told me they wanted.
mhm.
And that's it.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
from
So,
yeah, this business looks a lot different than when it first started with the Facebook group.
yeah. Yeah, it looks really different. And it has been a journey. And we talk a little bit about how entrepreneurship is a lonely ride, but I
Mhm,
really don't feel like I'm in this alone. I really
mhm,
do feel like I have a really amazing community that has in one time felt very supported by me and now is returning that favor and is really supporting me in what I'm trying to do to move forward. There's a lot of trust that goes into speaking your mind and having something that is helping you pay the bills and giving constructive feedback to the person who built it. You have to have a real relationship to be able to do that. And I'm so grateful that I feel like we were able to accomplish and build that, because
mhm,
the virtual market would not be anywhere near where it is without that.
mhm. And so how did you end up setting the fee structures once you got up and running? How do people participate and pay as part of that participation? Can you talk more about how that fee structure works for the current sellers?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I heard from vendors was that some of their issue with other major marketplaces is the confusion around pricing and
Okay.
how sometimes it's this when I make a sale, sometimes it's that when I make a sale. How much
Hmm.
do I owe this month? Where's my money going? And they really didn't like that. So, something that was important to me was to create a very fair and transparent fee structure. And so, the way that I was able to do that was to create a membership fee. So our vendors do not pay a commission. They pay a membership fee upfront and they decide if that's something that they can commit to paying or not, if that works in their budget or not. And if it does, they know that they make that payment once a year and that's it. So for
Hmm.
a vendor who sells $100 worth of product, the fee is the same as a vendor who sells $100,000 in product. It doesn't change, and so it works for them because they like to know it upfront. But it also works for me because if they only sell one thing, and I'm basing my fees on commission, well, then that gets kind of tough. Vendors want a place where they can send their seller or their buyers from Instagram or from their Facebook page or from their friend group, where they can send them and not worry about all of the fees that then go to someone else because they've just made a sale.
Hmm.
So it really worked for both of us
Hmm.
to set it up that way.
Well, the other thing that is very challenging about commission only type structures, and people love them, like, well, it can be as a marketplace, well, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
The problem is there is zero incentive for you to do anything to bring anyone to the marketplace. A lot of what I've seen when it's been commission only is there's nothing on you as the business owner then as the person selling things, because it's easy for it to become super passive, as
Yeah.
opposed to where if you're actively selling on there and you're paying a fee, you're more likely to actually share the information.
Yeah.
You're more likely to make sure it's updated everywhere in your socials. And again, this just from my pragmatic experience, what I've observed
Yeah.
being in this industry. And so it helps ensure that both parties have some skin in the game, and
Yeah.
that it helps you be able to set budgets accordingly based on how many sellers you have, but then it also helps ensure that they're going to send buyers to the platform as well. So they'll make sure it's updated in all their socials. They'll make sure they include the various links and all the various things in newsletters. So it really can create a nice win-win
Yeah.
environment. So speaking of, marketplaces are really difficult because of the whole I have to have buyers and sellers. And it's often much easier to get the sellers than it is to get the buyers.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about how have you been strategically thinking about the buying component? And how are there unique things that you do to find buyers for your marketplace?
Well, I feel very fortunate. And I think that having a successful business, a big chunk of that is luck. We can call it what we want and we can say, I followed this 5-step program. Yeah. And also, you got a little lucky. And I do think that there was some luck in the timing that we set this up. And um we did have a really big base. So we started essentially that first 6 weeks with 18,000 people that were really motivated to buy. And
Mhm.
so we've now grown that from 18,000 to we're getting close to 27,000.
Mhm.
And so it's been very organic. I think we haven't tried to take over the world. We haven't tried to grow to all these new markets and let's expand to different cities and we've really focused on doing something really cool right here. And
Mhm.
people like that. And so we haven't needed to, although we have grown by, almost 10,000 new accounts in the last couple of years, which, is pretty significant. Um, We've also been very successful in continuing to re-engage an audience that is already bought in.
Mhm.
So
So for where you're at in your life cycle, are you only in Calgary?
we are currently only in
Mhm.
Calgary. And
S
so
Okay.
we are working to grow and to build. But again, it wasn't about becoming the biggest market as fast as we
Mm-mm.
could. That has
Right.
never been my goal. That's never been the purpose driving me to do better. The
Mhm.
purpose really has been, how can I better serve this community that I am in today? And
Mhm.
so until I'm doing that perfectly, and maybe it'll never be perfect, but
Mhm.
until I'm doing that in a way that feels really good, I'm not ready to move on to a
Sure.
new market and to a new area.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like justice for the vendors who have stuck with me and who
Mhm.
have really committed to working with me, and having conversations late at night about this and that's not working, and the trust they've put into me. I want to give that back to them and be like, I'm here and I'm going to make this awesome for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's
And
where
so
I'm at.
right n Yeah, and so there's a lot of different strategies around how marketplaces can grow, and that is the strategy of being hyper local, fully developing out a market where you're at before
Yeah.
you expand to the next markets. And so I completely get that strategy. It's like, "Hey, we still have room to run in Calgary. We're not done here yet.
Yeah.
Finishing building it out and owning this market,
Yeah.
in particular." And so before we move on to other places in Canada, we're going to finish building it all out well here. A lot of people can have well, we're just going to take over the world immediately. And you're like, nope,
Yes.
no world
And
domination here.
yeah, and it's really hard because I find myself, I get like caught up in it sometimes, because being in the tech space and building, a new platform that has, proprietary technology, I get to be involved in a lot of tech conferences and
Mhm.
investment summits and, all of these things. And it feels great to go to these things and have people be interested in what you're doing, and it's exciting, and they're like, oh, let's grow this and let's do this awesome big thing, and let's you know take over the world. It's very exciting. And if you don't have a very clear vision of what your real goals are, I can see it in myself that I've gotten caught in that a couple of times. And I've had to dial myself back and just be like, it's okay. I am doing well right here, and that this is good for now.
Mhm. And so can buyers come from anywhere in Canada, or do they have to be somewhere in Calgary, the Calgary area? How are you trying to manage that as you're kind of containing your scope? Because that presents its own challenges.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, in a couple of ways, one of them, and the reason why we try to continue to stay hyper local when looking for new buyers, is that shipping fees are one of the biggest costs for makers. And so that's great. There are all of these wonderful, new companies that are coming out to to reduce shipping costs, and that's all awesome, and to try and compete with that Amazon Prime mentality of like next day delivery. That's awesome. But if we're trying to reduce them, I mean, we can go one step further and just eliminate them. And if people shop from home, and they shop from their neighbors, then we don't have to ship, and we can really reduce the amount of money people are spending in shipping costs, altogether. So that is one of the things that we have set in our algorithm. So when you
Mm.
shop on our platform, you put in your postal code and you build a profile so it knows you, it knows where you live. And when you search scrunchie, it will show you the scrunchie makers that are listed in proximity to you. So the closest vendor that makes
Mm.
scrunchies that lives near you will show up first. And so it's not to say that, we're in Alberta. It's not to say that someone in Newfoundland couldn't come on and shop from us, but it's going to show the closest scrunchie maker. We don't have one in Newfoundland, but it'll still show the closest one And right now it'll
Sure.
show Calgary. And we actually did an update recently where we did add the ability to add in shipping fees.
Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
is a new feature that went live a few months ago for people to be able to add that on now. Whereas it wasn't when we first launched. So now it is.
Mhm.
And so they can definitely still do it. But again, the ultimate goal is to really just eliminate shipping altogether and have people shop where they live.
Mhm. Yeah, and shop hyper local. And yes, the shipping fees is really a conundrum for a lot of artisans because, the Amazon effect and lots of other large players that have pushed everyone to expect free shipping. When you're a small company, that eats a lot of margin. I
Yeah.
mean, it really does. And so this
Yeah.
this idea that your algorithm actually incorporates who's closest, and then people can look and see, and sure, they can choose things from further away, but it's a
For
unique
sure.
approach to shopping local, to say no, we really base it on where you are physically,
Yeah.
as a buyer. And so your buyers really could come from anywhere in Canada. It sounds like it's just going to
Absolutely.
order from proximity based on this. So it's more the seller side that you've limited to Calgary at this point,
Exactly.
while
We've
you kind
had
of finish building.
sales made that have gone to Europe, and we've had sales made that definitely go to other places in the world. That's just not our
Mm-hmm.
target market. Those people find us
Ah,
chance.
so buyers can really come from anywhere.
Yep.
It's really just, oh, no, that's good to know, because some marketplaces limit buyers and sellers, and so everybody's got it a little different. And so for you, if someone's actively out there shopping, to be like, hey, 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 I can buy from here too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always say that, everyone, I'm in Minnesota, so I'm right on the Canadian border.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And there's a really cool place just in Duluth there where you can have a PO box and it's very
Mm-mm.
cool.
Mhm, mhm. I
Yeah.
might have to investigate that. I actually get to Duluth. I went to UMD in college.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a beautiful
Oh,
place.
it's an incredibly beautiful place. So it's absolutely wonderful. Yes. So now, in terms of the types of sellers that you have on your marketplace, so we've covered the buyers and the sellers, where they can all come from. Now, tell me more about, are there particular categories that you sell? What what don't you sell? And how do you define those parameters around what's allowed on your marketplace?
Mhm. So I would say that it is and will always continue to be a work in progress.
Mhm.
We really try to make this a handmade platform. But what does handmade mean? It definitely has changed over time. And
Mhm.
so it's really important for us to continue to evolve and commit to continuing to evolve as art changes. And so, what we say is that if it is handmade or designed by you, then that is something that you can sell within our platform. So, for example, we had a vendor who makes pots and pans. So, does she hand make every pot and pan? No, they're not handmade, but she designs them and she has a special base on them that she feels makes them a better product than others. And they're made in a factory, but they're hers and they're designed by her and they're,
Mhm.
curated by her. And so that counts for me.
Mhm.
That small business matters. And so we want them on our platform. So they
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to be handmade, but they at bare minimum have to be designed by you. I really don't want the drop shipper, the person who is ripping off other designs. We really try to stay away from that.
Yes, before we hit the record button, we talked about copyright infringement. Bad.
Please don't do that. Yeah.
Yes, that is awkward for all parties when you infringe other
Yeah.
people's copyrights.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we really try to be an inclusive and caring marketplace. So I say evolving because, it changes over time. There was a time on our platform where if you make, orange T-shirts for Indigenous Day, then you could sell them. And then we evolved that and we were like, hey, actually, this shouldn't be a for profit thing. And if you're going to make them, then your profits should be going to the proper place. And so we evolved to change that. And then you learn a little bit more and you say, hey, you know what? Actually, to make this shirt, you should be Indigenous. And so then so we evolve and we're committed to doing that and to learning and to changing as information changes to us.
Mhm. And I think it's also hard for people that haven't necessarily run marketplaces to realize there are so many different situations that you get faced with as the marketplace that were not on your bingo card.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I didn't envision or I didn't think about that scenario. And it's
Yeah.
extremely difficult to create things that are fully comprehensive, and there can be gray area. And so that's why policies do have to evolve over time. You're like, oh, hey, wait a second. And then you see how that then plays out. And then you
Yeah.
might have to evolve it some more and say, well, now that
Yeah.
we're thinking about it some more, and that's just the nature of business, right? It's no different than how an artisan evolves their product lines and makes new things and tries different things and
Totally.
experiments with how they improve techniques. The same for the marketplace in terms
Totally.
of serving that particular customer base and then what that customer base wants as well. So
Yeah.
because the
And
other side
so,
of it is what buyers want, right? And what they
right.
expect. Hmm.
Yes, and it can be really overwhelming. I'm really good at business. I'm really good at numbers. But you're right. Like running a marketplace is totally new for me. And so it's where like that open communication and that good relationship with people who know that if I mess this up, I'll acknowledge that. And like, I'm going to trust that you're going to tell me if I'm messing something up because I want to know. And they know I want to know. They know I
Hmm.
care. And so it's really a two-way street that we can, build something together that's really cool. Versus like I might be winging it, but I feel like I'm winging it with people who are really, really supportive and in the know. And I feel like they're invested with me, And that's
Hmm.
that takes that frightening, scary side of it and really kind of diffuses that a lot.
Hmm. So now, from your perspective, what actually makes a good product listing on your site, just from your observations? Because you've seen an awful lot of data at this
Yeah,
point with
for
so
sure.
many sellers on the platform. So, what makes a good product listing in your eyes?
For sure, photos. You have to have reasonable photos. Obviously, lighting is number one. And so, when you become a vendor of the virtual market, we actually worked with an incredible local photographer who built out a course for our vendors on how to take better pictures of your stuff before you put it online. So, when you
Hmm.
are a vendor with us, you get access to that. Program from her. Shout out to Dana Pugh. She's incredible. And so photos is number one because if I'm shopping online and I'm comparing your product from your dark basement and I'm looking at this other product who is maybe 3 kilometers further down the road but they have good lighting and a white background, I'm probably going to buy from them regardless of how good the write up is and how awesome the story is about why I make what I make. I'm shopping from that other person because, yeah. So that's definitely number one. Number two is staying up to date. You have to stay up to date with things. If you are hoping to sell for Easter products, but when I go into your shop, the first thing I see is Christmas, I'm probably not going to buy from you. So you have to update your stuff online. You
Hmm.
can't just let it sit. That doesn't sell. And then for my market in particular, because we aren't massive, we don't have tens of thousands of vendors. Metadata is super important. So we have a space for metadata and making sure you use those keywords and so that you're getting included in those searches. That's extremely important in a good listing with the virtual market.
Hmm. Now, do you Do you push any of your data from the virtual market to like Pinterest or other places, or is it all captive within your marketplace? Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, so I don't work on Pinterest at this point. I do vendor features through Instagram and Facebook.
Mhm.
So we
Okay.
do highlight vendors in that way and push specific products
Mhm.
on other platforms for sure. Because I think, that not only helps vendors to get their word out, but it's also kind of a billboard for us that says, like, hey, look, this vendor trusts us. You can too. So it's kind of good for both of us. Yeah,
So, what advice would you give an artisan? So, we've talked about a good product listing, but let's step back a little bit and talk about the marketplaces itself. You look around, there's so many choices. What advice would you give an artisan that's saying, hmm, how should I choose which marketplace or marketplaces to sell on? Give us some advice on that.
sure. So I think it's tough because I'm a little bit biased, obviously. I think number one is sell on multiple platforms. You
Mhm.
don't want to limit yourself to just one. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And by all means, sell on Etsy. And if you can get into Amazon Handmade, and sell in there, that's awesome. But sell in multiple places because you're not going to know where your audience is without
Mhm.
testing out, because some people sell some really unique, awesome stuff. And the buyers for that unique, awesome stuff are not everywhere and they're not in one place. So you have to kind of throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks a little bit.
Yep.
The second piece that I would say is I think that um, website platforms did a really good job of convincing small businesses that they need a really cool, flashy, expensive website. And they did that really, really well through COVID. And I'm battling a little bit against that right now. I want to challenge that concept because I don't think that unless you have a really big engaged audience, that you're able to drive all of this traffic to your fancy cool website on your own without support. If you're able to do that, awesome, then by all means have it and stick with it. But we hear of vendors spending thousands of dollars on a fancy website and then be like, well, but nobody's going to it, it must not be fancy enough, and then they're investing more
Mm.
money into it and getting a logo and doing a don't need those things. That is another kind of plus for the virtual market with having a membership fee. You set it up and you can send as many people there and it doesn't cost you more money. It's okay. Use it. You can feel comfortable sending your customers there, and knowing that you get all of their information. So I would say, make sure you do your research and make sure you know what you're getting into, because you can set up an awesome website. It's going to take you a lot of hours. It's going to be big pain in the butt. And if you don't have a really big engaged audience, a website will not bring you sales. So is there a better way you can spend your
Mhm.
time and your money?
Mhm. And what you're really
Probably.
getting at is your strategy,
Yeah.
right? And should your strategy be, and again, it depends on your business, just to sell in multiple marketplaces, and then add things like Square or other point of sale type readers if you do the local craft fairs. Do you really need the website? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And
Yeah.
and challenge that conventional wisdom. So one of the things with websites is you have to really be ready for the cost. There's a cost to
There's a
those
cost,
and
a big money component, but a really big time component.
time component.
If you're not
Yeah.
able to, Google recently changed all of the way they handle. I don't even know, to be honest. I just got the message from, who hosts my platform saying like, hey, this major change within Google has been made. To make sure you're keeping up with SEO and all of that, you have to convert this to this. Surprise, we actually do it for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And so then it was like, oh my God, thank God. Whereas, somebody who's managing their own website has to worry about that stuff. And if
Mhm.
you don't have time to do that, and if you don't have time to follow up with every sale to ask for that review, and do you have time to now send out that monthly reminder of like, hey, don't forget we exist, come shop over here. If you don't have time for that website and for that admin component that goes along with running a website, then it's really not a great fit for you.
Mhm.
There are
Mhm.
definitely better ways to spend your time.
Mhm. So how do people that want to sell, how do people apply to sell on your site? Is it an application process? Do they just sign up if they're in the area? Tell us more about how that works.
Yeah, so it's a two-step application process. So
Mhm.
first they go to our website, which is thevirtualmarket.ca. And there they will pick to sell on the platform and fill out an application. So we try and I say we try, but we do at this point, we absolutely make sure that every seller on our platform is a real human being, is a real person. And so that's really the point of the first step. So you fill in some information about where you live, about accounts and products that you sell, and that kind of thing. So then that step one, once you have approval that you're a real person, then you're given access to build a shop. And so
Mhm.
then once you build your shop, it comes back again because we really do our best to make sure that people aren't copying other people's work. They're putting out things that are appropriate. There are a lot of there's a lot of responsibility that goes into running a marketplace that can be shopped by young people, or and so we try to make sure we're doing our due diligence on that side of things, and making sure that the things that are being sold are appropriate and fall in line with our code of conduct.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's the second step. So you build your shop and you put in your products, and then it comes back to us for a final approval. And once that happens, then you're live and people shop you. We drive sales a lot from our big engaged Facebook group. And then vendors drive a lot of their own sales from their own social media platforms.
Mhm. So now, what's the coolest thing anybody's ever sold? And again, this is totally subjective. In your opinion, what's the cool, where you looked at it and you saw a sale go through, you're like, that is so cool. Tell us about the
So
coolest thing sold.
one of my favorite things, I love Christmas and I love handmade Christmas gifts and Christmas things. I don't know if you're a dog person. I have a dog, Dottie, and she is just the greatest thing in my life. And one of our vendors sells these advent calendars for your pet, and they're my favorite thing because I love it at Christmas, and she gets so excited about this advent calendar. And I have two boys, and the three of them get to open their advent calendar together, and it just like it makes me so happy. So that's probably one of my favorite things that I have ever purchased from the
Mm,
virtual market.
super fun. An advent calendar for your
Yeah,
pet. Love
for
it.
your pet. It's just like the cutest, like most ridiculous thing, and I love it.
That is super cute. It's
Yeah.
very, very cute. I can see why you would love it. So now, as we get ready to wrap everything up here, how do people find you on the socials so they can follow you, particularly if they're interested in either buying or maybe someday if they're in another location in Canada selling, or other locations even past that? You never know.
Yeah.
How do people follow you on all the socials?
I would love it if they followed us on Instagram, which is thevirtualmarket.ca. That is our Instagram handle. So that is definitely where we're the most active.
Hmm.
And so that one shows a lot of different vendors. That's where all of our vendor features are and where we, talk about fun things. Then, secondly, if they're interested in more of the business side of the virtual market and they want to know as we're growing and, future plans that we have, then I would say you definitely want to go to our website and sign up for our email because we have our email subscriber list that get those emails. We don't send garbage stuff, and I really only send emails if they are relevant. So you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about me filling your spam box. But yeah, that's a really good place to learn about what the virtual market is up to on the business side of things.
Mhm. All right. Well, this has been so incredibly fun. I am delighted to have been able to talk in person and meet you. And so, thank you so much for joining us today, Sally.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone that has been listening in and stuck with us this far. You can learn more about Handmade Seller Magazine at handmadeseller.com and some of our various subscription options for our quarterly magazine if you're interested in that. Otherwise, we will see you next time.
Thanks so much.